Hello and welcome back for another video. This is the first time we've done YouTube in a couple of weeks. There's just not a lot happening in Overwatch and even Overwatch League for that matter, so it's been hard to plump out that content. But it's been a couple of weeks now since we last did our off-season tracker, so we're going to talk about that, talk about the moves that have happened. Honestly, isn't really a lot. There's been, we've already heard most of the moves that are already happening. Most teams are just shoring up their rosters, and then there's like Valiant and NYXL who have done feels like nothing. So we're getting a sense for what all the teams look like, but let's just sort of talk about all the new players. So I think we're around here, November 11th, Washington Justice signs main support opener. Kind of funny because he's replacing closer. So opener is a main support player who played in like Australian contenders which is like a weird place to come from. He also didn't really have great results when he played for Gen G earlier in the year. So does seem like a weird pickup to me. Maybe did really well in open tryouts. I don't really know what to expect from this signing. Obviously they have Vigilante and Krillin on the sideline as well, but both of them are flex support. So opener is the only main support on this team right now, and he seems like very green, like very much a rookie. So I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about this. Maybe it's a 900 IQ signing and that people weren't just looking in the right places, but who knows? Who knows? Only time will really tell what we'll expect from opener. But that's pretty much Washington Justice done, right? They got the 3 DPS, Decay Assassin Happy, Mag Fury as the tank line, and then 3 supports, 2 flex supports. It's pretty much that's kind of like the formula that I expect every team to come into the league with. You want 3 DPS to cover all 3 roles, like all the heroes. You want 2 tanks, 1 main tank, 1 off tank, and then 3 supports, 2 flex, 1 main support. Under the guise that maybe flex supports will be more prominent in Overwatch 2. So we'll see how that works out, but that feels like Washington Justice closing out their roster. So let's talk about the big team that has made a lot of changes since we last did a tracker video, and that's the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou Spark have made changes to their coaches, and we'll talk about that first, and then added a bunch of players. So Hangzhou Spark add Changun as head coach. Changun was previously the head coach of the Seoul Dynasty. I don't know how I feel about this signing from the Hangzhou Spark, because Changun and like the Seoul Dynasty, if you remember the issues that we had with Seoul Dynasty, was just like, it didn't feel like they ever made the right choices, right? Like it always felt like there was a coaching diff, something was weird was going on. There was always so many questions over compositions, players being played, all that kind of subbing strategy. And Changun has been like the head coach or a coach at the Seoul Dynasty throughout its entirety of its period, since 2019 season. So can Changun turn around Spark? Maybe he can help. I don't know, but I'm not in love with the decision to make him head coach, especially when you look at the other people around him. Oh shit, where are we going? Especially when you look at the people around him, because he has, I don't know how to say his name, Zhao Gui, as an assistant coach who has been on the Seoul Dynasty, Spark last year, the only remaining member of the coaching staff. But then there are other 2 assistant coaches, Amiro and Neko. And that sort of opens up the door of like, is it valuable to have player coaches? Like people who have been players, don't have a lot of experience in coaching, and then put them in that coaching role. I usually don't mind having one because they have great knowledge for the game and they can impart that onto the other players in more of like a spectator role, because there's a lot of things that you see as a professional player that maybe the player playing doesn't see. And a lot of the coaches don't have that kind of experience. But having 2 of them, especially Miro, is someone who's been out of the scene for a long time. I know he's been a streamer, right? I think Miro's been a streamer for a while. And putting in a lot of work. So I don't know, maybe it'll be really good, but there's definitely a lot of rookies and coaches coming into this. So there's a lot of question marks about the coaching staff for Hangzhou Spark. Maybe I've just been burnt by Spark over the last few years, where it doesn't feel like they've been making the right choices, even though they have the budget and the right idea. It just feels like execution is always lacking. So let's talk about the players that they've actually signed then. So we have Pineapple, Alpha Yi, and Ione, all coming from Bilibili Gaming. So these guys were all part of the Chinese contenders, Bilibili Gaming, the sister team, the academy team of the Hangzhou Spark. So it makes sense that they're getting promoted. All great players. They are, they came second in Chinese contenders. I don't know a ton about them. As I always say, haven't watched a lot of Chinese contenders. But I'm excited to see what they can do. Obviously, they have the results, but they did go on to lose to O2 Blast. So good options, maybe not the best. And then you add Super Rich, who was also from Team CC, who was on the best team. Team CC has been dominating Chinese contenders for a very long time. So yeah, we'll see what he goes on to do for this team. So I like the additions, okay? But we talked about this on Plat Chat a little bit. I'm worried that they still haven't worked out how to make a Chinese Korean team work. And the only time we've seen it work was in 2019, when it was only Guxue as the only Chinese player. So really, it's only Guxue who has to adapt. All of a sudden, you have a bunch of these Chinese and Korean players who are trying to mesh together, make it work. With the coaching staff that they added, is that going to be enough? They have the talent once again, but they've always had the talent. Every roster they've ever had, it feels like they have the talent. Are they going to be able to like make the synergy work? From what we talked about, it's about communication. This team usually communicates in English to sort of bridge that gap of everyone has to work to, you know, a common language. But what I said on Plat Chat is the biggest issue that I've had personally when I've worked with mixed rosters was it's not in-game communication. I think in-game communication can be bridged because it's very simple words. It's pretty easy to understand what people want to do in game. Obviously, there's going to be some things that fall through the cracks. But for the most part, it's outside of game when you're having these conversations about like the complexities of the game. You're doing your VOD reviews. You really want to have these complex dialogues where that's really hard. So I hope they have a really good translator and good setup so that they can bridge that gap because it's hard to do. And I'm a little worried that they're going to fall short again. Maybe this is just my doubting of Hangzhou Spark. As I said, I am a little jaded from their history throughout the league. Other than 2019, they haven't really had a good season. So I'm excited to see what they do. I like, having other players around Architect so that it doesn't feel like they're leaning on Architect to do a lot. They have Shy, so I don't expect Pineapple to play a lot, the Chinese hitscan player. I think Shy is probably just better, but I'm a Shy simp. But then you have, Alpha Year to be able to fill in that role for Architect. Maybe that will loosen things up. So they have a pretty deep roster now. They only have 2 supports, 1 flex support, 1 main support. I would like to see another flex support be added. Sideshow had this fucking, mad scientist shit on his head earlier where he was talking about maybe Architect will play flex support, go back to Ana like he did on San Francisco Shock back in 2019, 2020. But only time will really tell. I hope not. But the team makes sense. They got 3 tanks. Ligia Bernard had a pretty good season, and Liga we haven't really seen. Guxue obviously has a great main tank. So the team is coming together, but I have my concerns for the reasons that I just said. It feels like they're pumping through players and no one has ever really been able to perform. And maybe that's a coaching and management issue or like team structure issue, not as much on the players. So Josh has that hat on. Yeah. So let's talk about it. Boston Uprising signs flex support MCD. This is a pretty interesting one. It's more, obviously Crimzo has gone to the Boston Uprising as well. So this is just them shoring up their support line. Faith, Crimzo, MCD. I think this is a solid backline. I don't think it's going to be one of the best backlines that we have in the league, but I think it's really solid. And I think for Boston Uprising, where it seems like they're shooting for, it should easily get them there. Obviously, I believe there's a lot of concerns over MCD and everything that's happened before that with, getting dropped from Hangzhou Spark due to some bad words said about, Chinese players and stuff like that. That is the rumor and why he was dropped, or at least that's what the Hangzhou Spark said. So, a lot of people are frustrated about that, but he is a good player, and he has had good results from time to time. So Boston are going to be the ones who have to control him. And this kind of feels like we're starting to see exactly what Boston is. I think they need to add 1 more hit scan player, and they've hit that formula that I'm going for with all these teams. Because as much as Striker can play hit scan, you really want a hit scan player and a tracer player, right? So that if we end up in a tracer hit scan meta, they can play that together. Because Valentine hasn't really shown a great tracer or a great hit scan. So I think they need someone like Valentine is the flex DPS player. So we'll see what they end up doing if they add up 1 more player. But this is where it stands for right now. Yakpong retires from the NYXL. Really disappointing for Yakpong. I feel like he got his redemption arc. So he started, if I remember correctly, he started on the Toronto Defiant, right? Started on Toronto Defiant. He made his debut in 2019. Didn't really have great results. That Toronto Defiant team just really fell over. Then he went back to Contenders, played for O2 Blast, had a great performance on O2 Blast, made it to NYXL, and just another rookie team that struggled. And I just think he didn't get the results like that he really wanted. And I'm sure it's really hard as a tank going into this Overwatch 2, only one tank, to really sell himself as, hey, you need me on your roster. So I feel like the main reason he retired, probably got shopped around, tried to get into a team when everyone said no, doesn't want to go back to Contenders, just, call it a day. So it kind of sucks. He's a very talented player that I think never really got his opportunity to shine on a good team. But maybe, he just didn't have it, but disappointed to see another player retire. Then we have Paris Eternal re-signed Vestola. So they actually commit to Vestola, so they dropped Vestola. And I thought this was a really weird one as well when they did drop Vestola, because I think he played really well for the Paris Eternal. I wasn't expecting him to get dropped. Maybe he wanted to shop around. Maybe it was his decision, but that's what we got for Paris Eternal. So obviously they're rounding out the roster. They got Dan and Vestola again as their tank line. That's pretty good. This support line, Khan and Dredro, really liked that. Naga, Glister as the DPS lineup. I think they actually cover a really wide range. Like, I think you could actually get away with just playing Naga Glister, because Glister has, the Tracer and the hit scan. Obviously, didn't have a great season with the Shock, but I think he has those in his wheelhouse. And Naga is just a very flexible player as well. So I think they could get away with this 6-man lineup if they really wanted to. But obviously, I'd like to see some additions. Maybe a really good Tracer specialist and another flex support, but yeah, for the most part, it's just the same team plus Glister. Glister replaces Only God for the most part, so nothing crazy changed. The big changes are really in the coaching staff. They've got J-Mac, who was promoted to head coach, and Mabugi. I don't really know anything about Mabugi. I don't know who Mabugi is. He's coming from, Gen G, Team BM. I don't really know these teams, so obviously probably worked with J-Mac in the past, and J-Mac has decided to pick him up. So be interested to see how that coaching staff does. And then almost the last things to be announced. Vancouver Titans officially announced their team. I think we talked about this in the last video because it was being rumored, and they'd been speculation of what the Vancouver Titans was going to be. Seems like they're doing a really good job of putting their best foot forward. So they have Aspire, Shockwave, Masa, Aztec, and False. So that's just a really solid team. Just on paper, just with those 5 players, I think you can be really excited about this team. I think Vancouver will not be the bottom team that we have seen from them for multiple seasons. They put money forward. They're putting work in. Shockwave Aspire, I think, is a really good team. I think Shockwave can play that flex DPS. We haven't seen as much flex DPS from Shockwave. We actually saw a lot of hit scan from him, at least in the last 12 months. But I think he has the flex DPS. Maybe they'll add another player, and then Aspire will be the hit scan. No, Shockwave will be the hit scan. Aspire will be the Tracer / hit scan, and they'll add another flex DPS. I don't really know what they're exactly planning on doing. False, obviously coming through North American Contenders. Glad that he's getting an opportunity for this team. And then you have Masa and Aztec as their backline. Aztec played for Toronto Defiant last year. We didn't really get to see a lot of him in the season. I feel like we mainly saw Lastro, but we did see bits and pieces. Curious to see how he does for the Vancouver Titans. And Masa, I really like Masa this year. I think it would have been criminal if Masa didn't get picked up for a team after having such a good performance with the Atlanta Reign. So this isn't the final roster. Yeah, they have to add another player. So I think they could easily add a DPS and a support and potentially I don't know, whatever tank they want, like a main tank in case they want to cover all those bases. But we'll see. I think I'm excited for this team. I think this is the most excited I've been for the Vancouver Titans in a while. They do still have the same coaches from last season, Flubby and Pew. I don't really, it's really hard to judge Flubby and Pew for their performance last year because they just didn't have a good roster. Just straight up did not have a good roster to work with. So maybe I'm glad they're getting a second opportunity. We'll see. There was one more announcement that came out today that is currently not updated on the tracker that I'm trying to remember what it is. It just happened today. Someone help me out in chat. I'm blanking on what it was. There was one today, yes. Neko. Neko was added as a tank for the Hangzhou Spark as well. But we already talked about that. It's right there, refresh. Before our very eyes. There it is, Neko as assistant coach for the Hangzhou Spark. But we actually already talked about it. I forgot that we talked about that. So we'll see how he does. As an assistant coach, obviously doesn't have a lot of experience, I believe, in that role. So, not tank. Did I say tank? I did not say Neko as a tank. If I did, my bad. He's a coach. He's playing assistant coach. Can you imagine if Neko signed with the Spark to be a tank? Whew, that would have been a choice. There are some rumors going around about some of the teams as well. The primary one that we need to talk about is the Los Angeles Valiant, a team that we have literally had no official signings for. I don't even know who their coaches are. I don't know if they've kept the same coaches, what the fuck they're doing. But the rumors are that they are signing No Hill, who was the coach of Team CC, and they are also getting Dia. Dia is potentially coming back into the league from, he was one of the best players. I think we can all agree he was one of the best players in the original 0-40 Shanghai Dragons. Really solid player, and he's been in contenders, especially on Team CC, for a really long time. I think he got given the opportunity to sign with Valiant last year, but he said no. Smart man. It seems like if D is signing, I think that gives me hope, and they're signing No Hill as a coach. I think that gives me hope that they're doing something good with their team. I don't know what that is. My concern for them is that it feels like all the Team CC players that are good have already been signed to other teams. Are they waiting too long to really make these official signings and then really start building the team? Because D and No Hill's great, but now they need to fill it out with a roster that's good. So are they going to be able to put together a good roster this late in the offseason when a lot of good players have already been signed? And the same thing can be said for the New York Excelsior. They only have Flora signed to their roster right now. And the players that we were thinking, oh, this player could go to this team, this player could go to this team, they're getting snatched up very, very quickly. So we're getting there, but I'm a little worried for the Los Angeles Valiant once again. But this is at least promising. It's not like we're going to see another fucking, Silver 3 running through the league, or, High B, who's not a main support player. So we don't know. We don't know what they're doing. Do they have money? I don't know. It obviously seems like they're not going to be a Western team at the very least. So there will be another APAC team. But yeah. And I think that's the main leaks that have been coming through. As I said, we're kind of in the dark. This is really going to be the dark times. I think December is going to be the dark times of announcements of we're going through the holidays. Most teams have already locked in what they want to do. If you're not going to sign, you're probably going to announce going into the new year, getting closer to the season. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know when the next tracker video will be coming out. I hope you guys found this interesting, informative in some way of just like what we're going to get going. Obviously, not a lot of additions have happened, especially impactful ones, but all the teams are shaping up and the league is shaping up, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the league, with Overwatch 2, what build we're going to be playing, how it's going to work. There's a lot of concerns around that, but that's a whole different problem. So hope you guys found it interesting. Much love. Let me know what you guys think. If you're excited for any of these signings, are you a Vancouver Titans fan again? We're going down the runaway lines. So much love. Peace out. And I'll see you guys next time.